If you want to successfully publish a coloring book for the lucrative 65 and older demographic, you need a character that looks exactly the same on page 1 as it does on page 50. This is Inspector Fernwhistle, and keeping him consistent is the hardest part of AI publishing. Before we even generate the art, we have to understand our reader. As adults age, the eye's lens loses elasticity and focusing becomes difficult. By designing specifically for these outliers, we ensure the final book is comfortable and accessible for everyone. This matrix categorizes human limitations into permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities. It shows how accessible design reaches far beyond a single demographic to help a massive, varied audience. Looking at the C row, a senior reading with a permanent cataract requires the exact same visual accommodations as a driver struggling with the situational limitation of bright screen glare. Capturing this underserved market requires a specific workflow. We have to combine strict typographical accessibility rules with targeted AI prompt engineering. Step 1 is the text. Before laying out the book, we establish baseline rules for the typography. Older adults and readers with dyslexia often fall victim to the imposter trap. This happens when typefaces use virtually identical letterform designs for multiple characters, confusing the reader. This side-by-side comparison shows the difference. On the left, the capital I, the number 1, and the lowercase l are imposters. They look exactly the same. On the right, the accessible font uses distinct serifs on the capital I and a noticeable arm on the number 1 to separate them. Selecting a distinct typeface prevents reader frustration. The text remains highly legible even as a reader experiences cognitive or visual decline. Step 2 is our second baseline rule: strict color contrast requirements for any text or user interface element in the publication. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines require specific mathematical targets. For standard text, you need a minimum contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. To hit level AAA compliance for smaller text elements, that ratio jumps to 7 to 1. This simulation of a color contrast analyzer demonstrates the math in action. The initial low contrast pairing fails the standard entirely. By adjusting the values to increase the differentiation between foreground and background, the tool confirms we hit the 7 to 1 target for level AAA compliance. We never convey information using color alone. Hitting these contrast ratios guarantees the document remains usable for readers with achromatopsia and color vision deficiencies. With the layout rules set, we move to the AI generation phase. Here, we hit the primary failure point of AI book publishing: stochastic drift. Stochastic drift is the AI's inability to remember a character's specific visual topology. Diffusion models do not inherently possess a persistent memory of your protagonist's facial bone structure or clothing from one prompt to the next. Without a control framework, the character might be a round cartoon on page 1 and a 3D render on page 2. This variance destroys narrative immersion. Conquering stochastic drift separates amateur AI experimentation from a viable commercial publishing workflow. To solve this character amnesia, we use a specific tool, the Gemini Advanced Storybook Gem. Inside the Gemini Advanced interface, you select the Storybook Gem to begin the project. We input our master narrative prompt to establish the core subject. Create a visual storybook about a Victorian fox detective named Inspector Fernwhistle solving a mystery in the town of Whiskerville. Show him examining a clue with a magnifying glass. This flowchart illustrates the hidden mechanism. The AI acts like an animation studio's character department, generating a master reference sheet. It then silently feeds those exact constraints into every subsequent page generation. This centralized reference point ensures the protagonist's coat, hat, and facial structure remain identical, regardless of the lighting or action required in the next scene. We have a consistent character. Now we address the final aesthetic hurdle: forcing the AI to output printable, KDP-compliant coloring pages instead of fully rendered digital illustrations. Standard AI models automatically inject grayscale, shading, and gradients. These artifacts make the physical image incredibly difficult for a child or senior to color. To strip out these unwanted elements, we add explicit modifiers to the prompt. We require vector style and pure black and white, and we explicitly command no shading and no grayscale. This split-screen comparison shows the difference. On the left, the default AI output creates a muddy, unprintable grayscale mess. On the right, our modifiers produce a clean, pure black and white vector line art version that is ready for print. Utilizing explicit negative prompting is the only effective way to override the model's artistic biases and secure a functional asset. With the interior line art finished, we move to the final publishing phase. The pristine output must now navigate Amazon's strict administrative rules regarding AI. KDP defines the status of content based on its origin. Because an AI tool generated the initial visual structure of our line art, the rules require us to classify it as AI-generated, regardless of how much we cleaned up the contrast later. During the KDP upload flow, simply select Yes for AI-generated content. This satisfies administrative compliance and maintains your account standing. By combining the Storybook Gem for visual consistency with strict typographic and contrast accessibility standards, you create a scalable publishing workflow that properly serves the older adult market.